Okay, so today we're talking about deploying our apps to a cloud server. And today we will be using AWS. So a few things that we want to talk about today is we want to be able to run our app from a real server on the internet. And we will be using AWS to do that today. We will also kind of see the differences between running locally and on a server. We're going to have to use a few tools that will help us run. So the built-in Django server, the dev server is not going to really be enough for us. Awesome. So we've mentioned the word, so something that will come up also today is DNS. Do you guys remember what DNS is? Or what it stands for?
Domain name server.
Domain name system. So the domain name system is basically just a network of databases, and they translate IP addresses to domain names, and vice versa. I think they translate domain names to IP addresses. I think the notes are incorrect. Yep. And we will be seeing a few different record types. So record types, we have A and then CNAME. This will make more sense when we see it. And then we are going to talk about HTTPS a little bit. So we've seen HTTP, which someone remind me what that stands for. HTTP.
Hypertext Transfer Protocol.
Yeah.
And the S is for secure or non-secure.
Exactly. I won't write that down, but yes, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and we will be using the secure version today. So HTTPS gives us the lock up here that says your site is secure to access. But that's not the only thing. So it looks secure, but also, I mean, it makes your site look trustworthy, but also it gives you, it encrypts your data, and also it gives you access to certain browser, what's the word? Features. So you can gain access to browser features that are not allowed for sites that are using just pure HTTP. And these are like geolocation, just to know where your phone is. What else? Device orientation. And then the accelerometer as well. Device motion. So these are mostly for phones, but you can access on your website a phone's location, how fast it's going, the angle, the speed, all that stuff. You can also get user media. and web media, like the file types, or sorry, the data types. Is it file type? I think it is file type. But anyways, you get extra features when you have your site secure. So we'll see how we can actually get our site to be on HTTPS or using HTTPS. Yeah, well, hopefully the laptop's accelerometer is 0. I heard that I think certain Macs had an accelerometer so that way if they fall, it knows to shut off before it like hits the ground, and so your laptop is not running while it hits the ground and things shake. Okay. Okay, so let's actually start transforming a project into a deployable version. So here I have a very, very basic project. So I'm going to start it just so you can see what it's doing. Okay, so I'm running the server. I already had done a build, so I don't really need to watch it because I'm not going to change anything. So let's go see what happens. This is my site. It's very basic, just has the welcome to my site, our name, and then just the button click that works from the React base example. So we're going to try to push this to our to an instance on AWS, a server instance. Okay, so the first thing that we need to change is our server settings. So in our Django project, we go to our settings.py. First thing we want to do, we've been running this in debug mode. So we want to turn this into false. We also want to add allowed hosts. So who is allowed to call or visit our website? Typically you put like the name of the website. There's like a bunch of different ones, but for now I'm going to be lazy and just put the star. There's more information if you look up Django allowed hosts. There's some more just some more documentation on what you could give. So some valid entries are like this. So you can have your local host, you can have your actual website domain and stuff like that. Okay, so the third thing that we need to add is going to be this. So CSRF trusted origins. We need to know that what is our domain name, and just so it knows to not trigger the CSRF errors. So this is the domain name that I have. I have purchased this a while back. So I'm going to use this today, and I'm going to deploy here. Okay. So pretty much everything else stays the same. I only have my app here. Database, I'm going to use Postgres, so I just need to remember that I'm using DemoDB as my database name. And that is it. I'm going to stop I already stopped my server. Okay. Awesome. Let's go on to AWS. Let's look at so I've already logged in. You might see a slightly different, let me see if this is the home. Okay, this is the console home. You might see a bit of a different screen. So we are going to be looking at the EC2 service. So this is going to allow us to use a virtual server in the cloud. So we click on that. We can go to instances. I don't have any running right now. I had one running this morning, but I stopped it or I terminated it. So I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to launch an instance. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to say deployment demo. Amazon would like you to use the Amazon Linux, but I'm going to actually choose Ubuntu because I want to. Ubuntu is, I think, one of the most popular Linux distributions. So there's a bunch of different operating systems that you can choose for this server. So the server is basically just a computer that is running on different hardware. So you can choose which operating system you would like. So Ubuntu, Windows, Red Hat, SUSE, these are different versions of Linux. Okay, so here, this is just which Ubuntu server I want. I'm just going to choose the latest one, which is the one that was chosen. I'm not going to change anything here. Yeah, if you guys have an account and you wanted to follow along, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so instance type, this is how much resources do I need? So I have 1 CPU, 1 GB of memory, and this is eligible for my free tier. And then it says the pricing. So here it's about like a penny an hour.
Zainab, I had tried this a couple months ago.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything we need to do at this point so as to give ourselves FTP access? Because I could never get FTP access.
Yeah, so you have to generate key pairs.
Okay.
So we're gonna do that right now. So I'm going to, I already have one created here, but I'm gonna create a new one. This will be AWS. I don't know. This is whatever name. I'm gonna keep it as the defaults. So it automatically downloaded a file here, AWS key.pem. So this is going to be the key that I can use to authenticate to go into the server. And I will show you guys how to do that in a sec. Okay, so we generated our key pair. So you notice here that it says pair, but it only downloaded one file. So AWS automatically, it knows what we're trying to do. So it knows that we're trying to generate a pair of secrets. So it gives us one, and then the other it will put on the actual instance. So it knows to verify against it, pretty much. So the second part of the pair is going on the instance. Okay. So here in the network settings, we will need to choose some of the settings. So allow HTTP or SSH traffic from anywhere. So this is going to allow us to, so this is going to allow us to actually log into the instance. So we can do from anywhere. We can also just choose from your current IP address. That way you're securing it a little more. You don't want anyone to be able to log in to your instance, even though they do need credentials. So having my IP chosen would be more secure. One thing to keep in mind, if you do choose this and you're in a certain location, so like if I chose this and I was here in the office, if I went home, I wouldn't be able to access my instance because I have a different IP at home. So I would have to go into the instance settings and then change this setting pretty much. So I'm going to choose from my IP right now. Allow, let's see. Trying to remember if we need to allow this last one. By default, no web traffic is allowed in or out of our instance. We need to check the boxes to enable SSH traffic.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're making these security groups, you can essentially specify which local IPs and like which internet traffic you want to be able to reach this
Yes,
server essentially.
yeah, exactly.
So, and then you can make a different group depending on if you've got different people or different regions or whatever the conditions are, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
A quick note there, if you wanted to, if you had a Chinese IP address that was trying to attack your system, you could exclude that one in that one in particular. So there are other ways to get around that, but there are ways in which you can block a specific IP range.
mhm. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Definitely. There's a lot of more fine-grained network settings that you can set. You can set your firewalls and only allow like certain ports to take in traffic, stuff like that. So I think the source. Okay. I don't remember. I think this one needs to be checked because we do need to allow port 80. Oh, okay, I see. Never mind. So this is HTTPS, this is HTTP. We need to allow it, allow this from the internet. So this is just an umbrella allowance pretty much that allows anyone to make a request to our server. And like Jim was saying, if you want to do more fine grain, we have to do some more settings. For storage, I'm not going to touch that right now. I'm going to keep it as it is. Advanced details, there's nothing really here that we need to set at this moment. Yeah, so there's like certain like shutdown behavior when you want it to terminate. Yeah, I might go back into this and set it to terminate or turn off or something. Okay, so that's pretty much all that we wanted to do. We're going to launch our instance. So HTTP traffic goes through port 80 and HTTPS goes through port 443. And so now we've allowed both. We have our instance. Let's check on our instances here. So it says that it's running, good. So one thing I'm going to need to grab from this information here is going to be the public IP address. So here I have public IP v4. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to open a terminal. I can open just my regular like Mac terminal. Oh, it opened in a different screen. Yeah, I can open my regular terminal. I'm going to choose to use the terminal inside of VS Code because I like that I can use like command backspace and stuff like that just to move around a little more swiftly. So I'm actually going to drag this up here so we can just see it in full screen basically. I'm going to this smaller. Okay. So first of all, we had our SSH key that got downloaded into onto our computer. So first, let me find that. It went into my downloads. Let me just move that over here. Okay, so I'm going to move it into here. I can just show there's no secrets here, except for the key. Okay, so I'm gonna drag it out here. You just need to put it somewhere where you know where it is. Okay, never mind. I need to find home because I want to probably put it in my home directory. Also, if you guys don't see like the dot files that are hidden, you can do Command Shift dot, and that will show them or remove them. In Windows, there's a setting that you can show hidden files for a folder. So you can just, I think, right click on the folder and then go to properties, and it should be somewhere in maybe advanced settings or something like that. Okay, so I can just put it in here, honestly. I can go to downloads, it's in here. I'll grab it just so it's easier to access. So I can access it from my ~/ command. So one of our hidden file folders is .ssh. I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah. So .ssh, and that usually holds certificates and stuff like that. So you can probably put it in there if you want. So you basically just have to put it somewhere where you know where it is and it won't get lost. So I guess for now, I'll just put it in my .ssh file folder. Okay, so I know where it is. I'm going to go here, and SSH stands for secure shell. So it basically allows me to access the shell of a different computer through my terminal here, through my shell. So I'm going to make a secure shell connection. I'm going to put -i for identity, and then I'm going to pipe it or give it my my private key that I just put into the .ssh. So I can access it through ~.ssh / let's remember what the name was, awskey.pem. So awskey.pem. And then the base user is that automatically gets created is called Ubuntu. So we can log in as Ubuntu at, now we have to specify the address of the server that we want to go into. And what do you guys think would be the address here?
IP address?
IP address, exactly. So I just need to copy it because I think I copied something else over it. So copy, and then we put our IP address. And there we go. Okay, so it's asking me, this is the first time I'm using this login, so it's asking me if this is correct. I say yes. Permanently added, permission denied. Okay, so here it's saying unprotected private key file, permissions 0644 for this file are too open. So basically, it doesn't like that our key permissions are way too open. So there's probably some write permissions that are added onto the key. So let's look at that real quick. We can do ls-l to see more information on files, and then I'm going to look at the folder. So .ssh, and I'm going to see the files in there. So awskey, I see here that has a read write. So it's allowing, so okay, let me explain what these are. These are permission bits. So the first one is not actually for permissions, it just indicates whether this thing here is a file or a directory. So if I was in, yeah, actually in the folder that I'm in right now, let me do ls-l. And here, so client is a directory, server is a directory. So we see there's a D here. Notes.md is just a regular file. So there's a dash here. So the nine spaces after the first bit are going to be 3 sets of permissions. So the first set is going to be for the current user of the computer. So me, my current computer user that's logged in. The second set is going to be for the group. So staff is my group currently. The third set of user permissions are going to be for other. So anyone who does not fall under these permissions, or sorry, these 2 categories. So let me go back to see this. So basically what the server wants is our key to be protected against everything else. So only our current user has read-write permissions, but it doesn't like that our group and our other user has read permissions. It thinks it's too insecure. So there's a command to change the permissions. And I'm going to use sudo, and it's chmod. It's change, I think modify. I don't remember the mod part. But basically you can tell it, you can say what permission you want to add, remove, or whatever you want to do. So change mode. Thank you, Michael. So let me look at file permission bits. Okay. So here you can use numbers to determine what permissions you want. There's two different ways of doing it. So here, let's see. So positions 2, 3, and 4, read, write permission, read, write, and execute permissions for the user, read, write, and execute permissions for the group, read, write, and execute permissions for other, so whoever else. So let's see how we can do this. So usually you can like just put numbers and it'll automatically set the permissions. So here, each one looks different. So like 077, 027. So we want read only. Okay. We'll learn how to parse this later. I will just show you exactly what we need to put. So here I'm gonna do sudo change mode, and I'm going to put, you can either put 600, which will change the permissions to read write for the user and then nothing else. Here, the permissions were previously 644. So 4 is to allow reading, and the 4 was to allow reading for here, and then the 6 was to allow read and write. So you can either use a number and then choose your file, so .ssh / AWS key. So I can do that. I need to put my password. Okay, so now if I look at the files again, now I see my permissions have been modified. If I wanted to, I could have, instead of putting a number, I could have said group minus read. So if let me add, so you can add a read permission. So here for my group, it added a read permission. You could just say group minus read, and that will remove it. So you can, I think this is a more user-friendly way. There is U for user, group, a G for group, and then O for other. So you can use those with the plus and minus, whatever read, write, or execute permissions you want. Any questions?
Hey, I have a question, Zainab.
Mm-hmm.
So out of these commands, which one would you say would be best practice?
I don't know about best practice. I think this using like the letters is a little bit easier to remember.
Okay.
So like the numbers, you have to look up what the numbers mean, unless you've memorized them and you know, like, okay, 6 means that I want read write. And then the zeros is no permission. A 4 is a read permission. So yeah, it's
Okay,
I
so
think this is a little more user friendly.
okay.
Other questions? Okay, so now that I've set my permissions, I can go back and I can try to do my login again. So SSH-I, I'm going to choose my key that I'm going to send in as my identity. And I'm going to log in as a user called Ubuntu, which is automatically created. It's not recommended that you create your project and set up everything using the root user. So Ubuntu is the best choice. And then we put the address of our server. Now we hit enter, and there we are. So it shows here that I've changed. So before it was on my local machine. Here, user Ubuntu at this IP address. So now we have been logged into this new server. Clear? Awesome. Okay, so first step is I want to get my code onto the server. So I'm going to clone my repository. So I have this code currently in GitHub. Let's just find it. GitHub. Let's see. It's not AWS demo. I think it's the deployment demo. There we go. Okay, I just want to make sure that it's public. You can keep it private, and then you would have to log in from the server, but I'm just going to keep it public for ease of use right now. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back to my my terminal. So here it's just, so Git is automatically installed onto this machine. So I can just do git clone. I'm going to put my URL. Awesome. So now if I do ls, let's not look at that so we don't get confused. If I do ls, I can see that now I have the deployment demo folder inside of my machine. If I do pwd to see where I was logged in, this is my home directory. So my tilde, it's at /home/Ubuntu. Okay, so now we have our code. So a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of the tools that we need to use are not installed yet. So we're going to have to do quite a bit of installation. Just one thing before I do that, I want to make sure that I included my requirements.txt file. If not, it doesn't matter. I can do it automatically. Yeah, Chris.
The /home/Ubuntu is the directory on the server, right?
Yes. Yes, that is the home directory of the server. Of this user that is logged into the server.
Right, and that's Ubuntu because you chose the Ubuntu option when you were selecting your AWS, right?
Mhm.
If you'd have chosen somewhere else, it would probably have a different location.
It would probably have a different name. Yeah, it would
Right,
be
okay.
like, because it would be a different operating system. So
Yep.
yeah, definitely. I need to check in server. I think. Yeah, I didn't include my my requirements.txt, which is why we always say to do the pip-freeze earlier on. But it's okay. I'm not gonna like upload, like push it and then pull it from Git. I'm just gonna install stuff here. Okay, so I'll just have to remember to do that step. Okay, so we're going to use apt as our package manager. We've used Homebrew. I mean, a lot of people have used apt as well when you're working with Linux. So I'm going to do an update first to see what packages I can retrieve. Okay. Awesome. So now Python should be already installed. Okay, they have Python 3. Oops. Python 3. Okay, cool. Just making sure. So Python's already installed, but pip is not. So we will install pip. And all of these steps are written in the lesson for today. So we're going to install Python 3 pip. Some of these files or these packages are large. Yeah, if I'm moving too fast and you guys have questions, please let me know. Ask.
All of my questions are probably beyond the scope of this lesson,
Mhm.
because I recognize that we're essentially borrowing space on somebody else's computer
Mhm.
to install our program,
Mhm.
so that way we can access our program whenever we want, because
Mhm.
essentially their computer is running 24/7 instead of
Exactly.
our computer running 24/7.
Exactly.
So when anybody wants to access it, they're going to log into their computer and not mine at
Yeah.
home. But then the question becomes, if I'm just renting a section of somebody else's hard drive,
Mhm.
what's to stop another user who's also renting space on that same hard drive to just go sideways into my files? And I know that's not something we deal with. That's for that company to say,
Yeah.
your stuff is secure and nobody else is going to access it. But that's a question that pops into my mind. So
I
Isn't that
think,
virtual machines?
yeah, I think each one of these is its own machine. So
or at least a virtual machine,
yeah.
which
Yes,
would make a
yes.
bit more
It's not its
sense.
own,
So
yes. It's not its own machine, but actually, because yeah, if you're sharing physical space, they wouldn't be able to access anything out of the scope of their virtual machine.
right. So it's almost as if Amazon is, when we're creating that instance, it's like creating its own virtual environment.
Yeah,
So
they
you
make
can
like
only touch the
containers.
stuff that's inside that sandbox or that virtual environment, and it can't go anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah. So you have permissions within like a container, and that's where your OS lives, pretty much. Your virtual OS.
Which also explains why we can do all of this install stuff here, because
Mhm.
we're just installing stuff inside our virtual environment, which we've done already whenever we load up Django. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also because we're using this virtual environment, we don't need to actually make a venv, because this is the whole thing. This entire environment is for this application.
yeah,
So
it's
we don't need
already
to
its
worry
own
about-
venv. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to install Postgres, get that started. Yeah, Jim, do you have more insights? I think because you've dabbled with these technologies.
It may be that Sebastian and Sid know more than I do. I don't think this is containerized or Dockerized yet. If you wanted to do it, you have to have that on your machine and to prep the files in a special way, I think. But security wise, this is all very isolated. There is, that's why the SSL keys, the chance that someone else is going to tunnel into your space is not good. There's much more risk in someone, a bad guy, a state actor coming in and hacking your htaccess key or htaccess file and giving themselves permission to come in to your system. I don't think this is, Sebastian and Sid, is this certainly containerized or Dockerized?
I wouldn't know, but that's kind of what it looks like from what I'm seeing here.
Okay, something
I think
worth.
Docker's a much different, they probably sell a service that lets you Dockerize and containerize thing. I just don't think it's here yet. Not on this system. I think this is just a AWS space.
Yeah, I'm not sure with the inner workings of AWS. So I can't answer that question. But it's something that I can look into, definitely. Something worth looking into. Okay, so we've installed Postgres. We need to create a user for Postgres that is going to match our current logged in user. So I can do sudo -u Postgres create user -- super user. And I could either give it the name Ubuntu, or I can use a parameter for the user that is logged in. So you will see this permission denied thing, or this error message, but it actually does create it, and I'm not really sure why it gives this error, but it does. So now it says creation of new role failed. So it has created a user that we can use. I need to just look into more why it says the permission denied thing. Okay. One more library, or a few actually, we have still some more installs. There's another library that we need that, not sure exactly what the purpose of this one is, but when we're trying to run the code, it requests it. So we will also install this one. So libq-dev. And then we are going to install Nginx core. So Nginx is going to be our server that can host static files. And then we're going to use a different one that is called gunicorn that will help us host the Python files from Postgres. So we're going to be using two new tools that are going to help with that connection, because we can't use our dev server in a production environment. Okay. So all of these are installed. I'm going to go into my deployment demo folder. Let's see what's in here. I have my client and server folders. I do need to install my requirements. I don't have to go into here to do this pip install, but I need to still go into a few more layers later. Okay, so we're going to install Django. I'm going to install Postgres or CyclePG2. Okay, and I believe that is all that I had installed here. I don't really have. I'm not the app is not too great, but typically instead of doing this, we would have our requirements.txt, and then we would do the pip install -r requirements.txt. That is the more correct way of doing this. Okay, so we've installed our tools, we've installed our pip, our Python dependencies. Now we need to look. So in my settings, I need to make sure I have my database. So I need to create a database with this name so it works. So I'm just going to use createDB and DemoDB. Okay, oh, I misspelled DB. There we go. Yeah, Chris.
So why didn't we just add the requirements.txt locally and then push it to GitHub and then pull it on this side?
I didn't want it to take too much time because we're very short on time today.
That would be longer?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. I think it would have taken the same amount of time. It was just, yeah. I would have just had to switch to my other terminal. I would have to activate my virtual environment, do a pip freeze, and then
Right.
Yeah, push. So I figured just installing the two libraries was a little easier for me.
Curious side question also.
Mhm.
When you make an update to your GitHub files,
Mhm.
how then do you move them to the deployment server? Is
You
that
will
a
have to pull
push
them
through
from the
Git
server.
or you pull them?
So you push them on the other side to get.
Yep, push
And
up,
then
and then
on the server, sorry,
you'd have to log into the server side and then pull them from there, right?
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only way that you can actually track the changes. Okay, so, okay, let's let's migrate our changes in our server, because there's always those base migrations. So I'm going to go into my server folder. See, yeah, this is where my manage.py is. So I'm gonna just run Python 3 manage.py migrate. Did you have another question? Oh, okay.
No, I just forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so now I think we've situated our Django side of things. So now we just need to install npm and make sure our client side data is correct or is there. So let's see, I'm going to clear my terminal. So the package that we need is npm. So I'm going to do sudo apt install npm. Okay. There's quite a bit of data. So it's going to take a bit of time. Do you guys have any questions? And thank you, Chris, for the great questions.
Is there a like checklist or some nice thing that we can follow for this?
Yeah, it's in the curriculum doc for today.
Okay.
That's actually what I'm following right now.
Do we get to learn how to make an install file?
Not at the moment, no.
Is it part of
It
the-
wasn't in the plan, but we can.
Right, not necessarily today. Are we gonna learn that at all in the course or?
No. So do you mean like a YAML file for deployments, or what do you mean?
So like when I go to download a program,
Oh,
let's say an MMO launcher, right? I'm gonna go grab a file and that file is going to say, here's all the other stuff you need to download, and it's gonna go find it and do it all automatically and set everything up. So the user doesn't have to think about that stuff.
oh, you can create that. So you can always just create. So I can touch a file and you can just call it install script or something like that. .sh. So .sh is a shell file. And has anyone used Vim before, or are you guys familiar with what Vim is? I think you're muted. So Vim is an in-terminal editor for text. So you can actually edit your files using it. So I'm gonna do Vim install script.sh. So here you can put all the commands that I just did. So you can do sudo. Oh, so before you actually type anything, you're not in the insert mode. So if I hit escape, you can't actually usually type. But if I hit I, that now you're in insert mode and you can actually type and delete and stuff like that. So I can say sudo apt install whatever. So I can put that entire list in this file and just have it run one line at a time. And the way I can run this, so I'm gonna just put the rest of my npm installs here. So I installed npm. I need to install a certain npm manager and make sure that it's a stable version. Last time we ran into the issue of it giving us an older version and it wasn't working properly. So I'm going to do this. Sudo npm install n, and this is, I think, the node manager, and then we're installing a stable version. So to write this file, to basically save it and go back to your terminal, you'll hit escape and then colon, so shift, the semicolon one, and down here you see you can put in characters. So I'm going to do W for write and then Q for quit. So it will save the file and then I can leave to the terminal. And now my script has something. So if I want to run it, I can just do dot slash. Actually, I think this is that's a Windows command. So if you want to run a shell script, you can do dot slash install script shell. But for Unix, it's source. So the same way we were calling our activate script. So source install script.sh. And there we go. It's running those commands that we set. So yeah, if you wanted to do like an install script, you can do it this way. Okay, so it seems like now we have like the latest stable version of Node. And now I can go into my client. See here, okay, and I can do npm install. Awesome. And I've already run the build before I push the code. I can run the build again. So just run build. We're not going to watch here because we're not actually making any changes to our files and we don't need it to keep building as we update. Okay. So yeah, so it ran the build. We should have our data in our static folder now. Any questions? I think this is a good stopping point. And a good time for a break. Questions? Yeah, I agree, Jacob. Vim is pre-installed on almost all Unix setups. It is it's the fastest way pretty much to edit your files. You could also edit them on your machine and then move them over. There's a protocol for file transfer. I think it's SCP or FTP. There's, I think SCP is for secure. But yeah, you can basically move files between machines. And yeah, I can show you guys the documentation for that one later. Okay, if there's no questions, we can take a 10-minute break and then we can come back.